Professor Nele Ziegler also, who will give a talk elsewhere, and I will talk about it a little bit, are here in Jerusalem. And I thank the Institute of Advanced Studies and Michal especially for facilitating this event. I will introduce, let me call you Dominique, with a few words. I thought how to describe Dominique Charpin. I would say he is the master of Old Babylonian in general, and this is something which is in the basketball terminology is an all-rounder. He can be in the defense, he can be in the offense, he can play any part in the game, and this is very rare. In 93, 94, I was in Paris in my postdoc with Jean-Marie Durand and Dominique Charpin. At the time, I referred to them as a team, and it was a great, very important moment for me because I really learned how things are really done. There was this energy there in the Rue de la Perle, where the texts of Mari were situated at the time. Now they are in Syria, and nobody really knows where they are. But at the time, it was a small apartment in a building built in the 17th century, I think. And the roof was really low, and Dominique certainly had to go in some parts of the corridor. I'm not joking, like this. And there were about 25,000 fragments of texts. This was something like, in fact, paradise for any Assyriologist. And I learned there how to deal with texts. This is not with a text, but with texts in plural. And this is something which Dominique and the team of Mari have, I would say, even taught the rest of the Assyriological community how to deal with archives in a meaningful way, not in a kind of clerk-wise way, but in a meaningful way to extract meaning out of names, to extract meaning out of familial relations, to extract meaning, historical meaning, out of administrative hierarchy. And what is unique for the Mari archive is that it contains, first of all, it's a lot of texts. This is the only so far, let's say, I think I'm right, the only royal archive in the Old Babylonian period. And so therefore it's a big text. Many of them were taken by Hammurabi to Babylon when they were conquered, when Marius conquered, so we had more text there. And as such, it contains many genres. Of course, most of them are administrative texts, and Dominique will tell about it, but there are letters. And this connection between letters and administrative texts, and some, very few, but still literary or at least non-administrative texts that exist in Mari, offer a unique opportunity which very few people knew how to pursue and how to take advantage of, as Dominique and of course also Jean-Marie Durand. Dominique Charpin is the editor of the Revue d'Assyriologie, the one of the main publication vehicles of Assyriology, head of many teams in the CNRS, now elevated to the chair of the professor in the Collège de France. I'm sure this is not the last step where he will arrive. And he's a very nice person. He teaches students, and he's a center, a hub of knowledge for many people. I always know that, in fact, before I send on my email, a response from Dominique will come. I don't know how he does it. He answers me before I send it even. And he's very, very helpful and friendly. And when it comes with knowledge, this is even better. I'm very happy to have you here, and I introduce you with, I don't remember the title, but it's a complicated title. So it disappeared, no?
Yeah, it will come.
Here.
Voilà.
Okay. The essay of Alamush Natsir, an example of reconstruction of archives in the frame of their Archibab project. And here is something more to say, one more sentence. Dominique Charpin is, in fact, the first person. When I came to Paris in 1993-94, I felt at times that I'm in NASA, because there was a real, it's prehistory. There were databases there. And there were databases, and there were names. It was something which is for today is completely goes without saying. Business was completely new then, and all the databases, all this quatrième dimension. I don't know. There's a program which is built by someone somewhere, and only one person in the world is using it, which is Dominique Charpin. But he knows how to use it, and he builds these databases. This is something which is talking about digital humanities is now the buzzword, but he was doing it before people knew how to spell it even. And this is another thing, and the Archibald project will be, I guess, part of your talk. So please.
Thank you.
You don't need it. So what I do is,
So thank you for this two-part introduction, and I want, of course, first of all, thank the Israel Institute of Advanced Study for this kind of invitation, which gives me the pleasure to be for the first time in Jerusalem. And then I will ask your indulgence because I cannot speak Hebrew, and I could not have my English revised by a native speaker, so I'm sure there will be mistakes. I hope you will forgive me. About the Israel Institute for Advanced Studies, you can find on the website, which I visited before coming, this sentence: all topics in all disciplines are welcome, so why not Assyriology? And this is exactly what I thought in parallel, because I didn't know what you were about to say. This is exactly the same tradition in Collège de France. Docet omnia is so it teaches everything, and I could not refrain from putting 1530 because the problem is François Ier, who founded the Collège de France, this year is the 500th anniversary for his becoming king of France. And but the problem is for Collège de France we have to wait for 15 more years. So I will be retired at that time, but I hope to take part to this celebration, of course. And so it will be this evening a topic in Assyriology. As you all know, the documents in ancient Mesopotamia were written in clay, which was curiously something cheap, but also long-lasting, which was absolutely not the goal of the people at that time. When they wanted something to last, they used stone, they used metal, and it has stone and metal have been reused, but the clay lasts a lot more. And after 2000 BC, the dominant language, either spoken or written, was Akkadian, and it's in its southern form, more precisely Babylonian. And for the first 4 centuries of the second millennium BC, what we conventionally call Old Babylonian period, no less than 32,000 documents have been published, which you can see on this Archibald website, which has now an English interface, and so you ask for the bibliographical search, and then you ask by site and or year. You don't put anything, and you get it's a document of more than 50 pages now, which is each time automatically generated, so up to date. And you see at the end, in fact, my slide is a little outdated. We are now a little more than 32,500 published texts, and without counting the texts which have been partially quoted or which are in catalogs. So it's a huge corpus, and Archibald is devoted only to archival documents, not counting the thousands of school texts of varied content, either literary, lexical, mathematical, and so on. I would like to speak this evening about a special example of Old Babylonian archive, counting only 72 texts, but I think this example is relevant to explain how we work. There are 32 letters. 13 have been already published, 10 are at Yale, 2 in the Louvre Museum, and even 1 in the Vatican, which I could collate last year. I didn't make a special mission for that. I used the opportunity to be in Rome to collate it. And you also have 19 which are still unpublished at the Oriental Institute, which I studied some years ago, and I hope to finish this book sooner or later. And you also have 1 unpublished tablet which has been will be published by Boris Alexandrov, who is also part of our Archibald group. And you have also, and this is combination which was alluded to by Nathan, in this case also, not only for Mari, is interesting when you have letters and administrative texts together. 40 texts, 2 only are published in the Louvre, and the rest is at the Oriental Institute, and maybe there are more texts which we still don't know. So all these tablets have been excavated at the beginning of the 20th century. They come from illicit digging, and so this is a typical case of you have to reassemble scattered things, and you have to even discover from where they come. What has been registered in Chicago is the people who sold them said they were found at Kish, so near Babylon. But in fact, internal analysis allows a more precise location. So this is a view of Kish I could make in some years ago. And in fact, it's not in Kish itself, but in a nearby city, which is, its name is written Rigarki, and so apparently it was Red Dam Room. And we have some text, for instance, a letter where you find this quotation: "Have the straw of the Matzrat era field carried to Dam Room." And another one, the Muwerum official Mareshtar has just departed to Dam Room to make to assignment to the people of Karanzida. For his provisioning, I have just made 1 sealed tablet for 1 sheep and 1 lamb brought to you by Shamash Sharili. And then you must give him as provisioning 1 sheep, 1 lamb, 20 liters of best quality flour, 20 liters of normal quality flour, and 20 liters of grain. So you see that the addressee, who is named Nabi Shamash, is in Dam Room because Mareshtar departed to Dam Room, and the master Alamush Natsir, who is writing this letter, has written about his the assignment of different things to him. So the letters have been sent to someone who is in Dam Room. And there is finally a letter of El Meshtum Alamush Nasir wife as to the beams from Sumu al-Khadou. You and Ili Palsam go to Sumu al-Khadou, receive those beams, and either ship them to Dam Room, or in case you do not ship them to Dam Room, store them under lock and key in Sumu al-Khadou in 1 room or house. So the next question is, where is Dam Room? It's clearly near Kish because you have this letter. All the A texts are unpublished letters from the Oriental Institute in Chicago. About transporting 60 liters of best quality flour and 60 liters of normal quality flour, about which I already wrote: load 120 liters of the best quality flour and 60 liters of normal quality flour, so that they are brought to Horsak Kalama. And Horsak Kalama in the O3 period was a city just nearby Kish, and in the Old Babylonian period there was a union of both cities. And you have also another mention of grain expenditures with 30 liters to Horsak Kalama, and in the same text, 20 letters for the Erebitim priest of Khorsak Kalama. So clearly we are in the vicinity of Kish, Khorsak Kalama. And then there is also, we have seen a quotation of one canal, the Matzrat Ira canal. We know it is in this region. So the conclusion is very clear. In fact, the tablets have been found in a smaller tell near Kish. But of course, when you have to sell tablets, if you say that they come from Kish, which is a better known city, you can hope for more money. So clearly, it's the reason why it was said it has been found in Kish. And in fact, it was found in a smaller tell of the environment. So about the chronology, we are dealing with the estate of Alamush Natsir, which is documented under Samsu-Iluna Hammurabi's son. And administrative texts are dated in the years 15 to 20 of Samsu-Iluna's reign. And this is very important because thanks to these texts, we can also have dates for the letters, which are always deprived from any chronological indication. And then the characters, we already met them. The main figure is Alamush Natsir, sometimes described as the man, Awilum, the boss, if you want, and his wife El-Meshtum, and his steward Nabi Shamash, to whom most of the letters have been sent. And I choose this case precisely because it's important to show on which kind of sources the historian of Mesopotamia, interested by legal life, social life, economic life, works, and how it is possible to make texts which, taken in isolation, are very laconic and sometimes uninteresting when you take only one. But if you reconstruct the whole thing, then it can reveal us a lot of things, and that's what I will try. So first of all, the administrative texts. We have two main group of texts. First of all, account of grains. This is the most boring kind of text you can have in Mesopotamian studies. But in fact, it's not. It can be very interesting. So, one example. So you have 21 such account. So you have here 30 letters for the meal, Naptanum, 1 letter for Tapawe di Shamash, 1 letter for Shamash Ulimani, 1.5 letter for Shamash Harili, 1 letter of grain for groats, and then it goes on, 20 letters for horse or horses, 10 letters for equids. We don't know exactly which kind, and it doesn't matter here. And so you have the total, 68.5 letters under the responsibility of Sinmagir, and then you have the date, so the second month, first day, and you have the year. Samsu-Iluna, the foremost king, smashed the totality of the army of Eshnuna, which is Samsu-Iluna year 20. And then, if you look to, so you have the impression that that's all. It's not true. First of all, because if you look on the side, you will see some string holes, and I will come back later about this feature. And you also have some ceilings. And so you can see faint impression here, but what is interesting is we have the same seal impression on these 21 documents. So when you compare them, finally you can have the whole seal impression and reconstruct Alamush Natsir, son of Apil Ilishu and servant of Samsu-Iluna. Unfortunately, there is no title, so you don't know what is the function of Alamush Natsir, but he is servant of the king, which indicates he is close to the power. And yeah, you see also part of the figures which are on accompanying this legend. And about sealing, you have a letter which gives us this very interesting notation. I have just sent a tablet, that is to say a letter of mine, to Dada about sealing sealed tablets for the losses of our shepherds, the losses of the fell mongers and various grain expenditures, about what you wrote me. Until the house's mistress comes, he, that is to say Dada, must seal together with you. So two people must seal, but the house's mistress, so El Meshtum, the wife of Alamushnatsir, normally was to seal when Alamushnatsir himself was not there, which is something which evocates what is known for Mary's Palace. When King Zimrilim is not there, his wife Shiptu may use her seal and open sealed rooms and things like that. So this is interesting to see that even for these private houses, we have ways of doing, and we will come back to this topic later, which are the same as what is known for palaces. Second category of administrative text, we have the management of workmen. You have small counts of work days which are sealed. And so this individual small accounts, here is an example. 2 days Ibnising for the threshing of the field along the Masrat Yura canal, and then you have the date, so month 2, year 17, and again the same year. And again a still impression, and this is interesting because this Nabi Shamash is surely the same as the man who receives the letters. And then you have also tables like that. So you have 3 columns which are harvesters, gatherers, and gleaners. And you have numbers and names, so it's clearly was a way to know who did something. And you have to pay attention. It doesn't mean that the people themselves worked, but they sent someone to work as a harvester and someone to work as a gleaner on a precise date. So here you had the 20th and 19th, and then finally the 20th. So for 2 days, and you see that part of the names are the same. This Achilumur was there, Ibn Sin also, and but it's not always the same names. So when you work with all of them, you can have an idea of people who had to deliver workmen. And what is interesting is sometimes you don't have any number. It's not the case here, although I restored one, but it's not sure. But sometimes you have a line with a name and you have no number, which means that it was prepared in advance, and at the end of the day, only the number was marked on the tablet. And finally, you had diverse texts. For instance, this account of silver, which is interesting because it's a proof that, contrarily to what has been thought by some Assyriologists, silver did circulate at that time, even for small amounts, and that a very precise accountant was made of silver, of course. And then what is interesting, of course, is to see that at the level of this domain, everything was made using writing, which is something which can be astonishing. And so I will recall that such documents were very often despised by, in Assyriology, and for reasons which have been already described by the late Gelb in 1965 in Landsberger Verschrift. And one of the reasons is, well, this account of grain or silver, what is it when you compare that to, I don't know, cosmic geography or or to beautiful literary Akkadian texts, or to the culture of scribes in MR, for to take accidentally 3 examples, and there is also one reason, in fact, why such texts are not so well studied. It's because they are often very difficult to decipher. And the reason is simply because the scribe noted for himself preliminary texts which were later to be put in an official recapitulative text. But what has been transmitted to us is something which was made for himself. And such texts are horrible to read, in fact. And so you have to use a lot of time for documents which, taken individually, are not so, I mean, who cares about a lecture of this name or if it is another name? But then if you want to make a real prosopography, you have to pay attention to every detail. This is interesting, and also I don't know if you know. There is another one I will show later, which shows that very often we have recycled tablets. From where I am, I'm not sure it's possible to see on this one, but there is another one which I will show you. And this also is very interesting, the way archives are swallowing themselves, so to say, because once you have entered a day-by-day count, then you can reuse the clay to make the count of the next month, for instance, which is, of course, for us a problem because the tablets disappear. And if you don't have the recapitulary, you have lost everything. So, yeah, this text is also important to show that even the smallest things are written in this letter. Now Achillumur must bring you the nets. As soon as he brings you the nets, see him and give him your sealed tablet, which means a receipt sealed by you. So you see the degree of complexity writing for private accounting was. So I already spoke about these holes, and here you have different tablets on which you see very clearly such holes, and you see you have 2 of them, one here, one here, one here, one here, and you see really very, very well the way it goes inside the clay, and so clearly the people had a string and they put clay around. And what is important is we don't have here labels, which is something else. We have real tablets with string holes. And I have a feeling that we already had such holes on Mari tablets, but till now they have not been correctly understood. These are the famous Ascudum sheep tablets, which are accountings for sheep which were used for divination, for eating and so on, offerings in the Palace of Mari. And you can see such things which were not clearly understood. And in fact, it's also string holes. But you have only one on the Mari tablets, and on the Alamush Natsir tablets, you had 2. And so I think we can imagine that the reason why all these tablets were sealed. So it was receipt which had to be kept as a proof that the goods were given to someone. And the scribe who wrote them knew they had to make at the end of the month a recapitulation. And so they put inside a string, and after that they use them to make a chronological sorting of the tablets by knotting together all the tablets. So you have two techniques. In Mari, you have only one string, so you can imagine it was made like that. And I put the lines of the tablets. And Al-Mushnatsir, you had two, so apparently it was done like that. And there it was different, but of course you can imagine that it was simply taken like that, and then you had the tablets with the lines on the other side. I was not there, so I cannot tell, but this is the technique of chronological sorting. I think till now it has not yet been observed, and I'm sure there are other tablets where this can be seen. And the question of what is kept and what is lost, this is the example I alluded already to. You can see very clearly here on the reverse traces of cuneiform sites which have been erased, which means that this is exactly the same kind of work, day of work and names accounting. So clearly it was used and reused by the scribes. And this is something which can be seen for a lot of the administrative text. And so if we now put tablets in chronological order, then we see that we have text one for Samsuinuna 15, one for Samsuinuna 17, and then 6 for Samsuinuna 19, and most of them for Samsuinuna 20, and only 1 for Samsuinuna 21. So clearly the last 2 years are the ones where you have the most of the tablet, and we don't know why we have two texts which have been kept for previous years. So clearly this is, and if you look here, you have only months 8 to 10, so the second part of the year, and here it's only the first month. So there was clearly a chronological sorting of the tablets in antiquity, and that's the reason why we have only those texts preserved till now. We can, of course, make some comparison. In Mari, we don't have only the royal palace. We also have the house of Ascudum, who was a diviner close to Zimrilim. The building has been excavated in the 80s, and there a lot of tablets have been found. So you see the plan of the building. One interesting tablet with a red mark, which was a technique used to indicate that this small receipt has already been entered in a recapitulated text to prevent that it could be entered a second time. And this is how it was found in the field. And so what is interesting is in the house of Ascudum, unfortunately, no letter has been found. So it's a contrary we will see now for Al-Mushnatsir. But you have also administrative texts in the house of Ascudum which are lacking for Al-Mushnatsir, for instance, about textile and wool. So we come now to the second kind of text, the letters. They offer a lot of information, but what is interesting is most of the people mentioned in the letters are also known in the administrative text. So you can see the connection. And you have also people who are in the letters which are only in the letters. And most of the letters have been written by Al-Mushnatsir, so the owner of this house, to his steward Nabi Shamash. And it is very clear what happened. Al-Mushnatsir had to travel, and but he wanted to still give his order as he did every morning when he was drinking coffee, and so this is what is interesting here, because you have letters written every day when Al-Mushnatsir was not there, and with things which normally are not written, because they are orders which are given orally. And so it reveals a lot of things on the management of a house which are not quoted anywhere. And I will give you the proof of that. If you look to a lot of technical words in the CAD, the Chicago Assyrian Dictionary, you will see a lot of all Babylonian letters which are unpublished in A. And nearly all this special vocabulary comes from the unpublished letters of Al-Mushnatsir, which were accepted by Ronald Sweet for his dissertation in the 50s. So it's very funny. There is a reason why it is so, because these letters are of a special character. So an example to show how Al-Mushnatsir wanted to control everything from a distance. How much grain have you given out? How much is left? Send me a complete report to my tablet. So even for small things. And also he can answer to requests sent by his steward, Nabi Shamash. I listen all the tablets, which is the way letters are described, that you sent me. As to buying a millstone for what you sent me a message, I looked for millstones in Babylon, but they are known. I don't know why, but this kind of stone was imported. So it's interesting to see that there could be shortage of things which are of importance for the daily life, because you had to produce flour every day, because if you try to produce and store it, then you have insects which come, and it's wasted. As soon as a millstone is seen, I will buy it for you. Sometimes we can reconstruct the chronological order of those letters, because there is allusion to something which was already spoken about. As I told you previously, but we do have this previous letter, and there is a second passage, a second topic in the letter, and then a third letter alludes to the second topic, and so on. But the problem is to know if there is only one occasion, one trip, or several, and this I'm still not completely sure. So there is this letter which is interesting. At some point, El-Meshtum, Al-Mushnatsir's wife, was to meet her husband. To my chief says, so speaks Adad-Nada, your servant. And you have benedictions, the house, El-Meshtum, and the ward are well. As to the 2 core of grain to give for seeding, I gave them for seeding. And about having flour grinded, about what my chief wrote me, I am not neglecting to have flour grinded. So apparently he had some millstones. And about the flour which has to be sent with the house's mistress, about what my chief wrote me, as you wrote me, I will have it sent with the house's mistress. So El-Meshtum here is mentioned and by her name, and here only as the house's mistress, but the rest of the archive make it the identification sure. And another letter, she must take for me 5 liters of fish sauce and 1 liter of vinegar, embark her on a boat, and let she go to Sippar to join me before El-Meshtum leaves, and so on. So at that time, Al-Mushnatsir was in Sippar, but we are not sure that he made only 1 trip and that it was this one. And a letter make allusion to the fact that Al-Mushnatsir is to return. I will soon depart. I will be with you on the 15th of or the 20th of the same month, 5. So he has 5 days of uncertainty about a day will come back. What is clear is precisely that we have to do with someone who was of a rather authoritarian character, and he wanted to be obeyed. And so we have a lot of information, first of all, on the economic life. About, first of all, cattle breeding, it is clear, more and more clear, that there was no monopoly of the place on wool, as was written already long ago. And we see that Al-Mushnatsir owned sheep and goats flocks. And there is one letter about that. When Anumpi and Nabiyum, Sintapa, Wedi, and Ilimahabi will have left from Samnu, at the end of the month, one must wash the sheep entrusted to Nuratum and to Shamash Sharili and let them plucked. And it is known that the reason why sheep were first of all washed and before being plucked is simply to prevent to have some dirty things which increase the weight of the wool. And it was of course easier to wash the wool when it was on feet, so to say, than after it was plucked. And you have this letter about oxen. You wrote me about Manum Kima Shamash, the fattener, who has not taken the care of having the oxen fattened, and about the fact that you appointed the miller Samsuiluna Karrad to fatten the oxen. I have my tablet sent to you as an answer. Look for this Manum Kima Shamash, have him detained in the house before Mare Erzetim until I come back. So one specialist who worked in an unsatisfactory manner and who is to be detained till he comes back, which clearly shows that the letter was written only a few days before Al-Mushnatsir was back. And what is interesting also is that the name of the miller, Samsuiluna Karad, Samsuiluna is a hero, which shows again that our man is close to the power, because someone working in the house for him has a name in the glory to glorify the king. We have also information about agriculture, like this one. Do not neglect anything concerning the house. Any amount of grains that you receive must be registered by you, granary by granary. So we have seen already another phrase which was like that. As I already wrote you, let them prepare a field of 2 iku in the region of the canal Matsatira for the cultivation of garlic. About the garlic, you wrote me so. There are 587 bundles of garlic. You wrote me so. Withdraw all the necessary garlic for seeding and gather the rest of the garlic. Do not put aside for someone even 1 letter of garlic. So you see the character of the man in such letters. And you have also allusions to plowing. Do not neglect the fields. Time for plowings comes. And unfortunately, you have to go in Egypt to have such beautiful pictures. This is a problem for Mesopotamian studies, that for daily life we are not so rich as Egyptologists are. You have also a lot of information about raw materials. For instance, something which was very important, bitumen. I sent my tablet to Sin Nadin Shumi, our beloved son, about giving a house in the merchants' area to store bitumen. As soon as you see my tablet, Sin Nadin Shumi must give you a house in the merchants' area, and you must store bitumen there. Receive there the bitumen you have to receive. Press Mar Tsetim, son of Shamash Bani, have him give bitumen according to his sealed document, and store it with the bitumen you will have received. And this is in Hit, the sources of bitumen which are still used today in Iraq. And so it's interesting to see that you have the merchants area, so something which is special, the Karoum quarter, not in the city itself, but something separate. You have also the reed mat you had made are not enough. Add more mats for the wool plucking. This was to prevent that the wool, which was clean because of the washing, could again be dirty. So you had to do that on this reed mat. Moreover, have reed baskets made as equipment for the wool plucking. So we understand how it could be done. And also the importance of boat transportation is clear in this archive, for grain of course, but not only, also for dates and figs. Give a boat of 40 gur with its equipment to Shamash Ili, the messenger of Amat Shamash, the Naditum Nen of the god Shamash, daughter of Lipiteshtar, so that he conveys to Sipar dates and figs. So again, a connection between Damrum and Sipar. We don't know the exact relation of this Amat Shamash, who is mentioned here, to the family. And again, transportation by boats, this time for goat's hair. Have goat hair intended for the palace, loaded on boats, and let it be sent to me. So we don't know if it was some kind of tax which was imposed on Alamush Natsir, but we see that this transportation was done by boat. Date and figure, sorry. And what is very interesting also in this archive is that we can see that payments are made either in cash, that is to say in silver, or in kind. We have that for making bricks. Either grain or silver can be given for that. And there is most famous letter which has been translated, never published, fully published, curiously, but it's quoted in the CAD. It has been completely translated by Martha Roth in our book, and it's very interesting. Concerning the woven textile workers whom you brought in to work, and who spoke to you as follows: 15 barley corns of silver is the daily wages per man. If you will not wait and deliver 15 barley corns of silver, then we, as a group, will take payment in rations of 20 silas of grain, 5 silas of beer, and 4 silas of bread per day. Thus they spoke to you, and thus you wrote to me. The wages for a hired worker are recorded on the stela. In accordance with what they spoke to you, either in grain or in silver, do not withhold their wages. And when I come, I will investigate the matter personally, and I will deduct from their work assignment. So there is a very precise way of estimating the work, and of course the most interesting for us is the wages for a hired worker are recorded on the stela, because the question is, have we finally a direct allusion to Hammurabi's code in such a document? And I would say clearly yes, even if we are later. And so the question is, with this bargaining, is what is on the stela what is to be given, or is it a minimum, and then there will be a discussion? Martha wrote very interesting comments about that. I cannot be any longer about that, but it's very interesting for precisely the question of either pay people, so on the stela it's in silver, or if it is made with rations. We have also a lot of information about social life. For instance, this example I quoted just before, because the people who had to work to produce this textile were asked to do that in the house. So we have an example of artisans workmen who were asked to come to the client house and work there. We also have people working on reed to make this reed maps, or also people who had to produce oil, and they were asked from abroad to come within the house. So this is the relation between workmen and huge houses like that. It's clear that people could be called when you didn't have at home enough people, enough specialized people for some work. We also can imagine how the house was. Especially, there is orders to prevent Eshnunian slaves to have contact with the outside. Moreover, I sent you a letter about women from Eshnuna. These servants should not look to the gate from the roof and must not cross the threshold. So segregation of female slaves, I will come back about them a little later. Another very interesting instruction, until my return, show him the pegs of my house's doors, so that he seals them, and he must sleep in the courtyard during the night. So the question is, the house is to be closed, and archaeologists have shown how it was made. So you had these pegs like that, which were in the wall, and you had a rope, and it was closed like that. And it was sealed, and what is very often found is such sealings, and you can see the trace inside. Previously, archaeologists only published the other side with the iconography and the legend of the seal. But in fact, what is also very interesting is the inside, because you can see the peg and you can see the rope. So when you exactly look at that, you can say if it is a peg for a door, or if it is something for a coffer, which is not so huge, and so on. So here you have something which is you can only understand what it is about if you know by the archaeologists the technique, because he says only the peg of my house, and in fact it's we have to add of my house's doors to understand this passage. And you have also allusions only to military life, but we see its consequences. As we have seen, year 20 of Samsuiluna was devoted to the commemoration of a victory on the army of Eshnuna in the Diyala Valley. And we also have such an inscription found in Hafajeh, where you have also this victory celebrated. And one more exemplary was discovered by the Oriental Institute diggings in the 30s there. So the question about this inscription is, as very often, is it an exaggeration? What is the historical reality about this victory? And then we have these letters. Do not neglect the watch. To watch, I imagine. Yeah, to watch the servants of the house. And you have a more explicit, already published letter. Moreover, I sent you a letter about women from Eshnuna. These servants should not look to the gate from the roof and must not cross the threshold. I already quoted this letter. And there is an unpublished one, which is even more explicit, about the Eshnunian women you wrote me so. The servants about whom you wrote me that I sent you and that you let go said unconvenient things to the people of the city. 5 Eshnunian women have thus been prevented from going out, and I placed them under watch. You wrote me so, as you wrote, watch these servants carefully, they must not cross the threshold, and they should not look to the gate from the roof. So the sentence here is the same as in the other letter, but here we are given the circumstances. And so clearly, these servants from Eshnuna, they were given to Alamushnatsir by the king after the campaign was finished. So we can see that this campaign was something real, was a victory, because some people were deported and given to important men like this Alamushnatsir. So you could say to me, well, this is an interesting imagination. Okay, and that's where this uninteresting small accounts of grain are interesting, because I can prove what I told you. 300 liters of grain, according to the Meshekum measure from the grain of the Mashratira field for grinding, received by Eliyaum. 300 liters of grain for the new servants received by Eliyaum. And if you see the date, it's month 8 of Samsul 19. So these new servants are the new Eshnunian servants alluded. And then you see something very interesting. They arrived before year 20, which is normal, because year 20 is a celebration of the victory of the what happened the previous year. And so you know that the victory was already made before month 8. So if you combine one commemoration, one royal inscription, 3 letters, and this small account, you can see the way important people were given by the king servants after a victory. In fact, if you look into the literature, we don't have so many examples like that for the Old Babylonian period. Of course, we could imagine it was done like that, but such details are not so numerous. So it's time to conclude, and a lot of among you know that I like such case studies. This is, of course, not a reason to reject more theoretical approaches, but I believe that theories have to be fed with such concrete examples. And conversely, of course, such texts may look rather laconic, and their richness is only revealed if you have more general concerns in mind. As I often say, you will never see that a document gives you the answer to a question if you never ask the question. On purely statistical grounds, our 72 texts represent only 0.22% of the 32,500 documents of the Old Babylonian period. But I would say that their importance is not proportional to their number. And one thing which is, in my eyes, very important is as I already said, the question of using writing for house management, and it confirms what I advocated already some years ago about the extent of literacy in Old Babylonian society. You had much more people able to read and write than it was previously thought. And writing was used, of course, to make information circulate through letters, which is what can be seen as the most evident things, but we have not to forget that it also allows a remote control, and we see, for instance, that Alamushnatsir writes, "Do not be careless about the house, and do not be slow to have foreground. My departure is imminent. During my trip, I will need the floor. Produce floor and act in a way that will not irritate me. And let them bring the baskets of your sealed accounts and the baskets of the sealed documents of Shamasharili, and write me your report about the baskets having been deposited, so that I need not to be angry." So you can see this control was something real. A more general problem, of course, should we consider such houses as palaces on a smaller scale? Or this is an example in Lhasa. One house is here, and you have the Nur al Palace at the same scale. So this is the architectural point of view, but you have also the textual point of view. Or on the contrary, are not palaces houses on a greater scale? What the sumerogram E2 Gal says. So it's a complex process to understand if the kind of accountants of the palace was the multiplication of what was already done for houses, or if people like Alamush Natsir wanted to manage their house the same way the king managed his palace. There is something still to be thought about. So that was about literacy, and of course we have regrets, and regrets is when you consider that we have absolutely no legal text in this collection, in this archive, and if you think about that, then you realize that perhaps what has been found, it is not the archive of Alamush Natsir. In fact, what has been found is the archive of his steward, Nabi Shamash. The letters received by Nabi Shamash, the accounting he did. And that explains, of course, why we have only a small part of the reality. But that's also what is interesting, because we have this everyday life details that we would perhaps not have had we only the legal documents of the family of Alamush Natsir. And to come back to the Archibald project, which was alluded in the beginning, we choose a phrase of François Ier, of course, when he began to build the castle of Chambord. Maybe some of you have visited this huge castle, very impressive. And he said, if we care about finishing things, we will never begin anything, which is for all our researchers a good motto, and I will thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for a fascinating paper, and I open the floor for questions by asking the first question myself. The holes in the tablets are interesting for me, because in incantations, in magical texts, they also... Now? Better? Okay. Now? Better? Okay.
Yeah, okay. It
right.
Was,
in incantations, in magical texts, there are also holes, and not in some of them, of course. And recently, I'm not sure I pronounced his name. I drank a lot of beer with him. I never understood. Ponyatov, I'm not sure. The Bulgarian guy from Berlin. You know him?
Yeah.
Ponyatov, yeah. Yes. He wrote, in fact, he presented it in Ghent, and then I think he wrote about it. He suggested, and he has good proof, I was convinced, that these holes in the magical texts, and some of them look like tabula ansata, so they look like kind of amulets. They were used for inserting plants, so leaves and small materia magica into the tablet, which makes, of course, good sense for incantations. I don't pretend to say that this is the case here, but have you thought about the possibility that something was not necessarily a rope was put them to group them together, but some other kind of notation? So something like tagging the text, like you had the red one, the red tablet kind of line crossed over the tablet. Maybe it was used for this. Because my impression is, and I haven't seen the tablets, and the way you presented it with kind of many tablets grouped together, I wonder if it would hold really. So hanging is, for me, is maybe they were grouped together and laid down on the floor or on the table somehow. But have you thought about, is it possible, do you think that it was labeled somehow by inserting something to the hole?
I would say it can certainly be decided by microscope analysis by someone who is competent.
Tries to do this, by the way.
And so something I already spoke with Walter Farber in Chicago, the possibility to have that down. And another thing would be there are now techniques to follow the hole inside the tablet to know exactly which forms it has. The main problem is such machines are mostly used for in hospitals, and so
you have to speak to Michal. She will arrange everything.
But now there are techniques to exactly follow. But because one of the question, of course, is to know if it goes straight near the, or if it goes more inside, and this could be seen by. So this is a next step, which is to be done in Chicago, and I'm confident in Chicago too. They have the necessary tools for such images.
Please.
But for such, these kind of things are mostly for legal text. Yeah, when people didn't own a silent seal and instead put these CIC2 marks on the tablets. But for such accounting documents, this is something different, I would say. And precisely because yeah, but the problem is in such cases you already have some seal impressions, and so I don't see the reason why another parallel technique would have been used. So this is something which is interesting in itself, but I would say on another chapter about the materiality of tablets, which is something which is very important to consider. Not only the text itself, but the tablet as a whole, which has long be something we Assyriologists have neglected, being only interested by the text, and in fact you have a lot of metadata which can be used to interpret the text when you consider the tablet as a whole.
Other questions? Yori, please. Wait, first, no, go ahead, Yori.
Was he a good scribe? Was he a good student?
Hello.
Does he use syllabic writing?
I'm not sure he wrote completely sure, I mean, but precisely, you have sometimes mistakes or sentences which are broken, things like that, or hesitations. So either it was dictated in a hurry and the poor scribe did what he could, or it was written by himself. I cannot decide, but what is sure is that Nabi Shamash was able to write and read himself. So and he was not a professional scribe. He was the intendant of the domain, and so it's not very wide, but nevertheless. And we have also some letters of sent by El Meshtum, and again I cannot say if his wife was able herself to, but we know more and more cases of women from the elite who were able to at least to read, perhaps not always to write, but at least to read, which has been to be considered as two separate things, because it's normally easier to read than to write. This is precisely something which, at the end of the study, I understood why I cannot answer to that, because we have only what Nabi Shamash was interested in, and a lot of other informations which we would like to know, we don't have them. So, and even the personal status of Alamush Natsir, I don't know. He took part to the campaign, but was he a diviner? I don't know, or a general, or unfortunately his personal seal does not give his title, and there is nowhere an allusion to his main responsibility. So we have a very interesting glimpse on aspects of his personal management, but his official duties are completely unknown. And this is again, perhaps it's only because the people who looted the house found only the place where Nabi Shamash kept his archive, and they perhaps 2 rooms away, they could have found the personal archives of Alamush Natsir. I don't know. And since I don't know which tell it is, it's difficult to imagine we could go there and go on excavating what has been left at the time, if there is still something to excavate, which is another topic.
And regarding to that, do we have small settlements of the Babylonian period excavated?
There are some, but and some are very interesting. If you see, for instance, in the Diyala, precisely, you have Tel Harmal, Shadupum, which is rather small and has given a lot of tablets. And if you see on the Middle Euphrates, the salvage excavation from the Haditha dam in Khirbet ad-Diniye, you have also a small city. We say city, but yeah. What was excavated, you have 10, 20 houses, and it's half of the whole. So it's a, yeah, it was considered as an alum. It was with walls. So in the Mesopotamian mind, it was clearly a city, but a very small one to our eyes. And there also archives were found. About which I am to speak later. I can't remember if it... Yeah, the next week, in fact. So if you are interested...
Amnon, do you have a question from an archaeological point of view? There is Amnon Bentor from Chatzor here.
No,
But, so
I would like to say that I like your statistics. Because how much is it? 0.25%? I try to make the same statistics for Chatzor. So far we have excavated less than 3% of the site.
No.
And then I made a list of what do we know and what don't we know. It's very interesting to compare, and I'm sure that your presentation here is a very good example of such a small archive and how much we can know.
yeah, but the rest of the 100% is known. It's in Al-Shibab. That's the difference.
And but also this was in fact at the beginning of the Archibab enterprise already 7 years ago. I realized that we even didn't know how much old Babylonian archival texts were published, and I asked to different colleagues, what is your personal estimate? And it was between 18 and 20,000. And in fact, it was at that time 30,000. And then also what is very important is to calculate the rhythm of how much we have each year. On the last 25 years, we have 500 texts per year published. And it's very important because when you use répertoire géographique des textes cunéiformes, it was written in 79, you had 53% of what is nowadays available. If you use the CAD, the first volumes, you have less than half of the corpus. So all the tools we use every day are completely outdated, and my idea was to stress that, because I don't think that we have a real idea of how much has been, and it has been published in such a dispersed way, in articles in Festschriften, colloquiums, or in books of plates with indexes but without edition. And when you begin now, already when I was a student, I had the feeling that Old Babylonian studies was a mountain, but now it's twice worse, and so it's also discouraging the idea that you have yourself to make cards, even with a computer, but it's impossible for one people. And so the idea precisely was to make something, a collective tool. And I am also very happy that more and more colleagues, when they published Old Babylonian text, send immediately, without us asking them, an electronic transliteration of the text, so that we could enter it in the database immediately. And so you have now, you will see in 2 or 3 weeks, there will be a new, we update the website every 3 months as an average. And the last text published by Eleanor Robson in Iraq will be there with some improvements, because Old Babylonian archival text is not a special field, and I could discover some, thanks to our copy, which is excellent, some more ideas. And so we try to keep up with what is new and to improve when it's possible. And of course, the main problem is retrospective work, because there is a lot to do. So when I calculated with what we have now as working forces, it could take 15 years. And if we ask for more money, and if we have more money, we will have more people. And we have also people who still work with us after they work with us being paid in Paris, and they go back. For instance, in Moscow, we have Ilya Arhipov and Boris Alexandrov. They still work at a distance to enrich our database, and I hope there will be more and more, and finally that everybody can use it, and when it is complete, of course, there will be only the need to keep up with new texts, but all the older ones will be there, and it will, I'm sure that it can change a lot of things, losing less time to establish a transliteration of texts which have been already published, and having more time to think, which is, after all, our main task.
Yes.
I won't ask any question, but just one comment, saying that about 15 years ago, it was decided on the DNA that every piece of DNA that is sequenced has to go to an archive. And for a couple of years, it was really bothering everybody, and it became to be the treasure of the community. And so, as I said, it's very similar. I mean, the amounts there are growing every 24 hours. It's updated, and the amount is just enormous. But it's become to be the source and the only source of knowledge. And so, maybe you want to comment, but just to say that. Don't leave the room, because there is a lot of a nice refreshment and some light something on the other room. Yeah.
Sorry, about closing the doors. I don't understand. It was closed from outside? How?
Yeah, in fact...
So you are inside, and how do you close it from outside?
No, it's...
maybe I lost something.
It's I can show you again. You can manipulate it from
inside.
From outside. Where is... yeah, it was... sorry. So you see, it's clear. This is the outside. And so you have the rope from the inside, and then you close it. And so, of course, such a clothing was absolutely not preventing people from coming, because it's very easy. You simply cut here. But it's the same with your gas or I don't know if it works here. In France, we still have a seal on the gas compteur. You see what I mean, huh? So it's only, of course, it's for doors like that. It was a possibility to know who was the last one who officially was entitled to enter, and if something is missing, the last one is of course responsible. And that's the reason why in Mari you have very beautiful letters. People writing, "I saw the seal of my Lord," that is the king, on the door ceiling, and I didn't dare to enter the room, because if I break that, after that, I am the one responsible. And it was a room where the gold and silver vessel were put, and of course, without a written order of my Lord, even if the queen says me to do so, I will not enter the room. So that's here we don't have something so tragic, but clearly you have seen the tone of the letters. Alamush Natsir was certainly not a very easy man, and so people were frightened that grain could disappear, because it was precisely recorded liter by liter, and so if you had 20 liters disappeared, then you were personally responsible. And you have seen also about garlic and things like that. So that's the reason why this sealing of rooms was something important.